Yeah, some of the quizzes get a little bit harder now, but you do the best you can. Because, you know, I want you to do it once before class. If you don't do it before class, you fool yourself. If you don't listen to the stuff once before class, you fool yourself, because then what we talk about is kind of like all a little overhead. I think. At least that's my experience. So at least do one, and then you go back and then you do it as many times as you need to do it to study the material. And for this section, all you need to do is, what's that called? What's that called? What's that called? I point to something, you tell me what it's called. It's from the list. All right? And on the in-class sections, the lab sections, you have videos in there that just talk about the terms. All right, so let's go through that. Muscles contract and bring points of attachment closer to one another. We easily understand that when they move bones around to make us able to manipulate the environment. Chewing is actually such a function in the face, as those muscles pull the mandible into the maxilla and bring the teeth together. Other facial muscles attach to skin to help us make facial expressions. In what other ways do humans use facial expressions? They're all of them, right? Yeah. I know I need to put that, who's all that apply. Certain facial expressions are universal. They're found even in tribes that have never seen outsiders. Fundamental emotions are expressed with facial muscles. It's even been shown that when we inject Botox, did you know that? A nerve poison into the anger expressing muscle, which is this one, which makes us look younger. That's why we do it. We don't just paralyze the frown muscle that between our eyes, but we also process anger differently internally. So when you can't show anger anymore because you can't contract that muscle, you're not just, you know, people are like, oh, that's a good thing. You know, we could think that's a good thing. But the problem is you process anger differently. I don't know what that's a good thing about, because all of a sudden you're going to fry up and explode. And I don't know, the house still standing after that? Maybe not. Huh? So that's kind of deep to understand that. It's kind of interesting that it's that important how we express our emotions into the world, that, you know, when we look back, when we look at that picture where I talk about that, isn't that cute? Oh, I thought that was really cute. But then, you know, the people that study animals and things like that have really, you know, talked about how the face is the seat of the emotional expression, and that makes sense. I mean, some comes with the body, but the face is really where you can recognize what people are thinking. And that's why I build it up like that, because I wanted to, you know, not just be a class where we just talk about this muscle is this muscle is this muscle is this. Because what is that facial muscle stuff interesting for? And reading facial expressions is very helpful. It's a very helpful thing to do. And so we have 7 universal facial expressions of emotion. We have happy, we have surprise, we have content, sadness, fear, disgust, and anger. And we're going through that in the videos a little bit. And so what was that? Certain facial expressions universal, they're found in tribes. Okay, we did all that. Oh, what emotion is expressed when we smile? Happy. Good. Good. And so let's go through them real quick all together here. We have to discuss emotion. Looks like we're barfing kind of. And I'll go to here. This is for the next slide. It took me years to realize today, this is not on the right slide. And so you want to make it, in a book, you want to make sure it goes with the anger. The bark, snarling dog. And that's more with this guy. That's what we're talking about, snarling, right? When we express the anger. And so that's that muscle here, the furring coming together, that really expresses the anger, and then the nostrils raising up, that brings the teeth up, and that's why those are the 2 main components to an anger expression, emotion. In the disgust, we have, we bring the nose up mostly, and that's the disgust, as we want to barf it out. That's kind of the body expression. For we do that, that's disgusting, you know, kind of thing. The kid was really good on that. And then the smile is interesting because it's an elusive one, because it can mean really happy, but it can also mean like, I just have to smile because I have to go do something, and it's a social smile. It's a polite smile. And that, you know, it's probably better we have a polite smile than a polite anger thing. You know, that's probably better direction. But if we have just the smile on the face as compared to the squinting of the eyes. It's more the polite smile as compared to the real smile. I know, now these poor people, they're all facing you, all know how to read them. It's interesting how you can read people. And then the surprise and the fear, surprise is the eyes going up, and then that's the fear, and then the surprise is also the jaw dropping like Lucy did in there. And then sad is, literally the corners of the mouth go down like the emoji going down. That's the sad. Here, and then also here. The inner eyebrows go up, and the outer eyebrows go, no, the inner eyebrows just stay, but the inners go up, so it makes it a downward smiley face. Oh no. And he didn't get a hamburger or something. And then a content. So I wrote this when this guy was president. All right, I thought, I can't just put the president up to show this emotion, because contempt is like, I feel like I'm superior to you. And there's reading that I did, and so it's basically a smirk. It's one side going, it's a half smile. Just one corner goes up, not both corners. And when I read it further, it goes like, it's a very negative emotional expression. So there's like psychologists that say, if you have that happen in your marriage, get out of it. Leave the marriage. It's not going to happen anymore. If people look at you like that, I know better than you, and they don't trust, that's over. And so I thought, I can't just put the president up because that's not fine. So I have to find another guy. And so it's here we are, right? 10 years, that tells you how old the stuff is when I made it. I think that was in 07 or 06. And this is a show called Lie to Me, which I think still has 2 seasons on Netflix. So if you get bored and need to binge watch something a little bit, it's a pretty fun show. Lie to Me. Because he can read, this guy's the actor, and he reads the facial expressions and solves court cases in that manner. So it's kind of fun. Alright, look at that. There we go to the real stuff. Alright, let's get to the real stuff. Muscle has a few attachment points, at least 2. One end anchors it to a stable area that doesn't move when it contracts. It's called the origin. The other end moves a bone, or in the case of facial muscle, the skin. What is that end called? Insertion. Alright, so when we talk muscle stuff, we'll come back. We'll do facial now. Then we do some bony stuff, and then we go back to all the muscles, the other ones. But facial muscles are its unique thing, so I figured it's good to do that with the skull, since we're learning those terms. So the 2 attachment points in the shoulder, for example, the origin is here, the shoulder where the biceps attaches to. The front almost the biceps, because that is stable when we flex the elbow and bring it up. So the bone that the muscle attaches to that moves is the insertion. So most of the time, that's very clear. Here, that's clear. Muscle attached, here's the origin, here's the insertion, because it moves the forearm. It doesn't move the upper arm. Unless we go forward, we can make an argument, but that's not going to happen. Down here, that can happen. You have a muscle that's in here on the thigh, goes to the belly up here, on the spine, on the inside, and you raise your leg up, the flexors, the psoas. But if you do sit-ups, and you go over to a certain point, the psoas pulls the spine forward, so it helps you sit up. It's not your abs you're training. And that can actually give you back pain. So that's a big deal. In that respect, you can argue the origin and the insertion would be reversed. When you lift the leg, the stable is the spine, and the leg is what moves. When you do sit-ups, this is stable and the trunk gets moved by it. So that flips. But we never talk about it like that. When we talk in the textbook, we just have one point and then the other point, and here we learn that. So the most common motion that muscle does is lift the leg. So that's the origin, that's the insertion. Right? But you can make an argument with that with somebody, to kind of get the understanding of what those 2 things mean. All right, and then the action is what is the movement. That's the function of the muscle. Oh, we raise the leg up, good. And then we call that flexion. We call that a certain term. We're going to talk about that on Monday when we talk about the different motions of all of that. And then innervation is, well, if you move a muscle in the extremities, in the place you walk, the muscles you think about moving, your brain needs to be involved. Otherwise, you can't move a muscle. And so the innervation means which nerve from the brain goes to that muscle and goes into the muscle and talks to the muscle. Because if you have carpal tunnel, like problems in here to typing, It could be that that nerve is impinged right in here and that hurts like hell. Because it innervates that muscle again. So we need to know that. When we go further in studies, we can say, where do the nerves travel to? And what anatomical structure does what impingement or what this or that? So it's very interesting. But it's a little much for our class, so we're not going into that at all. But every nerve, every muscle has a nerve it talks to. And then, and in the face, the good thing in the face is, if you ever need to look it up, for most muscles, in the facial muscles, it's the facial nerve. And you'll learn that later. We learn that when we talk about nerves, we have some nerves come right out of the skull, some nerves go down the spinal cord and then come out. The ones that come right out of the skull and go to the muscle, they call cranial nerves. And that CN stands for cranial nerve number 7, and that's the facial nerve, and that innervates all those muscles. We'll touch on that when we go to the brain, so you don't need to worry about remembering that part, just so you know what I'm talking about when you look and read it up again. Okay? All right, so that's good. So then we have the next question, I'm sure. We have, oh, that's a long one, shoot. Considering, you think I wouldn't make it so bad for myself. Considering the face, all the facial muscles except for the chewing ones pull either on the skin of the eyes, mouth, or nose. So it's the stuff you can distort, so to speak, right? I know that doesn't seem like we have nice things. In terms of the eyes, when we need to be able to close them, make them wide, raise them, and the eyelids up and pull them together medially as in furrowing. We have multiple muscles doing these different motions, or technically called actions. So the function is that action thing. The muscle names, which you have to remember for the test, give us an idea either where the muscle is, how it looks, or what it does. After learning the names of the bones in the skull, can you think of the name of a muscle? You could give a muscle that's covering the forehead. The frontalis. So we got frontal part of the frontal bone, frontal muscle. Then we got a frontal part of the brain. So it's good to know frontal. It's a good name. It's not even an anatomical name. And so when we then go through the muscles, well, we have facial expression muscles. We have to separate those. And the second set we have is chewing muscles. So those are different. The chewing muscles are attached from both the base of the skull to the mandible, because that's the moving part. So they come from here, they go down on the inside a little bit. And there are 4 of them. We look at them. And then those are bone to bone, because they move a bone. And then the other ones, facial expressions, are from a bone mostly to the skin. Some are skin to skin, but they move skin around. That's what's important. These facial muscles are the only muscles that move, that innervate in the only skeletal muscle that innervate in the skin. And the other ones are always, you don't have those in the arm, moving the arm stuff around. You don't have those kind of muscles. All right, so that's good. And then first one is the frontalis. It's right here. They have different names, aka also known as occipitofrontalis, epicranius. Those are just for you, there's reference later on, you go through an anatomy, it's like, is that the same thing? Because when I learn anatomy and chiro and all that stuff, there's so many times I'm thinking, the term's a little different, but I'm not so sure there's another thing like that. And it was the same thing most of the time. And so at least I can give you all the names I can come up with that I found in the literature and all that have the same kind of meaning in case you read an old textbook. Or so sometimes it's nice to read old anatomy books. It's kind of nice the way they drew in the old days and stuff like that. So that the origin is the epicranial aponeurosis. That's a flat tendon of the scalp, the stuff you can move like that. And then it goes here in the front, right to the skin above the eyebrows and to the root of the nose, and it raises the stuff up, makes these wrinkles that go up sideways. It pulls it together this way. So that's that muscle. Lifting the eyebrows, or is needed to express surprise or fear. We often use also open the eyes as much as possible with the muscle that pulls the eyelid. What is that one called? Superioris. Levator palpebrae superioris. Very good. So that's the eyebrow. No, that's a minute. I skipped one. I skipped a few. That's this one. So that's interesting. When you look at the skull, actually, that muscle is attached all the way in the back there by that hole. See, that's all the way in the back there by that hole. And then it comes up, down, and into the eyelid. And it brings the eyelid up and it pulls back. And what is the muscle name? We need to talk about muscle name again here. Levator means go up. Palpebrae means eyelid. Superioris means the one above. And guess what? We got one below. That would be the inferioris. So that's another thing. If you only have one, it would only have to be said levator palpebrae. But if you have more than one, you have to specify more. So here it says superioris. So you know there is going to be an inferioris. Or at least you suspect. Heavily suspect. Yes?
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say that they meant again?
Levator is like elevator. Just the L's on the wrong place. Elevator goes up. Palpebrae is eyelid. And superioris is above. Inferioris is below. We skipped, or maybe come afterwards, but we had here a corrugator superciliary muscle. That's a good one, huh? That's the skin of the eyebrows, from the frontal bone to the skin of the eyebrows. So that's the vertical ring. That's the frowning muscle. That's the one we want the Botox in there, because we don't want this stuff going on. So it goes right here. Of course, that's going to wrinkle this way. Corrugator, I think corrugator means pulling together. I'm not totally sure actually. Supercilii is again above muscle. Alright? So that's a name for that. And then Orbicularis oculi muscle. Orb is round, right? Orb is round. We have two of those muscles that are round. One around the eye and one around the mouth. Orbicularis, eye means oculi, mouth means oris. O-R-I-S. We'll get to that. So that's a muscle around the eye. And that closes the eyelid, makes folds radiating from lateral angle, makes the crow's feet, and can also help raise the cheek. If you really squint, the cheeks go up a little bit more. So if you really smile, that's why the smile stuff comes in up here too. The happy thing. And then we did that. And, oh, this is the best. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Press the wrong button. Let's see. The word corrugator means wrinkle. Oh, we did that. We have a muscle that does that in the forehead, helps process anger or keep the sun out of the eyes. That's the other thing it does. It keeps the sun. When you do that, you squint, you have a little shade on you. The sun doesn't go in that much. And the eyebrows are really good because they keep the sweat out of the eyes, because sweat hurts in the eyes. So if you work out and have no eyebrows, it can be a little more painful. Which muscle am I talking about? Right? That we just talked about that. I just skipped it in here. Surrounding an eye is a round muscle. So which one was that? The round muscle? Which one? This one? Or this one? This one. Oculi. Orbicularis oculi. I should just follow the quiz. Let's next discuss the muscle help us move the nose around. We have to be able to lift the corners up and compress the bridge. They concern themselves mainly with the anger and disgust motion. That's this gnarling thing. One of them has the longest name indicating what it does and where it is. Upper elevator of the lip / the wing of the nose. What muscle is that? Levator, labii, superioris, aliqui, nasi. Woo! That's called the Elvis muscle. There it is. Yeah, this one or that one? Yeah, I know. I'm working on trying to have to run as fast as I can or put the cable in. Thank you. So lifting again, levator, lifting again. Labi's lip above. Aliqui means wing. That's a new one. You don't need to worry about that. It's a nice word, but it's not going to come back so much in anatomy. But that's one place it comes. And nasi means no. We like that muscle. The other nose muscle is much easier name to remember. What's it called? Nasalis. Okay, let's skip to the next question because we're going to just look at that. That brings us the muscle around the mouth. There are many. Just think of all the motions the mouth needs to do. The lips need to move up and down. The mouth has a whole need to open and close. Its corner pulled up and down, as well as to the side. Levator means elevated, depressor means down, depressed, no, I'm feeling down, that kind of word. And labi means lip. What muscle lifts the upper lip to express anger, disgust, or even contempt? The upper razor of the lip. Levator, labi, superioris. Perfect. So when we go to here, I need to borrow that, sorry. That'd be a little... No, that's mobile for a moment. Alright, we got the nasalis. I traveled in Borneo and we had these monkeys. They were still around. I'm not sure if they're still that many around there, but they would sit in the canopies of the trees and we would canoe down in the river. And the higher the sun would get, because it's the Amazon, the sun is up. Borneo, the sun is similar, laying down. It's about 6 o'clock or so, and the sun would go up, and they climb higher and higher and higher just to enjoy the sun. And they would talk to each other and be whatever they do with each other. And then one of them once fell down and grabbed the leaves and caught himself. They're about this big. And the other ones, you could see him hold their belly and laugh at him, and it was so cute. So I have to have a picture of the nasalis is a nose muscle, so that's a long-nosed monkey. They're only, I think at this point they're all in Borneo. What is it? So that's the levator labii superioris muscle. So that's around here going up. All right, which two muscles depress the lip? One pulls down the entire lower lip in order to pout. And the other one pulls down the corners to express sadness. What's the second one called? What's the second one called? The corner of the mouth?
I think it's the second one.
The anguli. So the corner means anguli because that's where the angle of the mouth is. Corner of the mouth is where the angle of the mouth is. You know, like an angle in geometry, wider and wider. It's that. So that's the angle of the mouth. Depressor anguli oris. If it's the lip, it's a there's a depressor labii inferioris. So that's the depressor anguli oris. Is at the end. It's an easy one on the model. It's at the angle of the lips going down, and then the depressor. Depressor labii inferioris is more in the front. So it's not this, it's more in the front of the lip that it pulls down. This is a decent picture too when you actually study. It's not with the names put in like that. And then we got another muscle here, and that's the one that expresses happiness, lifts the corner of the mouth up. What's that muscle called? Which one? No. Yes, the zygomaticus is on the cheekbone. The cheekbone is the zygomatic bone. And so the one that makes you happy is the zygomaticus. There we go. The happy-making muscle. The muscle that goes in the corner, that's an easy one. The corner of the mouth to the cheekbone is the zygomaticus. There is a major and a minor, but we just worry about it being one. Major means bigger, minor means smaller. If a muscle says major and you don't have a minor, you know there's a minor. Because otherwise you don't have to say major. Those are good rules to understand. It's like learning, grammar. It's kind of like that. So those kind of rules that I'm passing along, pick them up as much as you can, because that's sort of what I've learned and filtered through and learned over the years. And we might not get exposed the first time around, but I think they're helpful to not make it such a big deal with this anatomy thing. Because there's a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of terms, but it's good stuff. I think it's good stuff. All right, then we got a question on that. I'm sure we got a question on that muscle. The buccinator muscle gives us dimples. It is well developed when we first are born, mainly use nursing because it compresses the cheek. So it makes like you're going to vacuum clean. Do you ever have a baby? I mean, when you're okay, you can do that. You put a finger in, you wash your hands first. But if you don't have a pass, you've got to do something. And the cheeks are huge. It's like a little hole, a little tube. They're just sucking. So it's a vacuum cleaner. That's, we got to do that when we nurse. And so that muscle is really well developed. It's that cheek muscle. But the buccinator, it makes dimples. when it's compressed. But on top of it is a small sliver of a muscle that helps pull the corners of the mouth to the side, and it helps it press the theater. What is that muscle called? The rhizorius. I know, it's not so much to laugh about. So that's the dimple muscle. There's the dimple. There it is. It's the big cheek. And then on top of that is the sliver. Whenever I come to it. No. There we go. The rhizorius. That's like that sliver on top of it. Got it? Muscle that surrounds the mouth helps us close it and protrudes the lips so that we can give each other a kissy. What's that called? Orbicularis oris. Good. That's around the lip. And then there's a muscle covering the front of the neck, keeping it nice and smooth until we get there goes all the wrinkles again. Ugh. It pulls the lower jaw down also, it helps open the mouth a little bit. What's that called? The platysma. The platysma. Here's the platysma. That whole, we don't have it on the model because we'll cover everything else that we need to study. So it's not on the test. But it's the muscle right here. Holds everything together. Tighten my platysma. And then this is the orbicularis oris, that round muscle around the mouth. Here looks nice. And it does all that stuff. So what they did when they tried to explain facial expressions, you know, these facial expression specialist people that can read all of this stuff and have all these micro expressions. So what they do micro expressions, and they're all these things, and then a different expression. What are all the muscles that are engaged doing this? And so that's how they describe it. So they don't have to learn the muscles because you don't need if you just read facial expressions, you're good enough off with going like, oh, the lip funnel is doing this, and this is the lip tightener, and those are then the ways you can express it. So it's a whole science behind it. It's very interesting. I mean, to some extent it's interesting, but I try to make it as interesting to myself as I can. And then, that's enough with the facial expression. So now we have a couple of muscles that chew. And that's the other vital job that we need on here. 4 of them help us close the jaw. Wait a minute. Close and opening the jaw. Chew, we can see from the outside, and the others are hidden behind on the inside of the mandible. One of the hidden ones helps us open the jaw. Which one is that? The lateral pterygoid. You guys are good. You guys are good. The lateral pterygoid. Because where it is attached, it's attached right here. I gotta make sure I know what I'm talking about. The lateral pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone, that's the stuff going down. If you look into the back of if we look at the back of the mouth, these things here. So it's attached from here, and it goes to the mandible up in here, the condyle, mandibular condyle. We talked about the condyle in the class already. When this contracts, it pulls the jaw forward a little bit. It's a model here, so we don't have that plate, but it pulls it forward a little bit so it can drop down. So that's kind of neat. So that's the lateral pterygoid. The other one is the medial pterygoid, and that's on the inside here, on the inside of the jaw here. And then when we go back, we have a muscle on the outside of the jaw, and that's the masseter. That's the one you see on the model. The inside ones you don't see on the model. But that's the masseter, which is attached by the cheek and goes into the mandibular ramus, and that closes the jaw this way. And then the other one is the temporalis, and that's the temporal fossa here, and goes down into the coronoid process, which is this little bump, and it pulls the jaw down in this angle. And so you have a lot of bite here. That's some good stuff. So when somebody has TMJ, you know what TMJ is? They call it TMJ, but this is the joint. Temporomandibular joint means TMJ. When somebody has TMJ problems, well, I had an ear, nose, and throat specialist in the office once, and he said, and I had one open house once, and he came in and he looked and he says, "Do you treat TMJ problems?" I said, like, "Yeah." "How do you treat it?" I said, "Balance out the motion. You got 2 joints on both sides, one here and one here." And when you move it out, and it goes like, whoop, like it moves awkward over. It doesn't go up and down. It goes sideways. You have dysfunction in these joints, or in the muscles too, and you need to balance the stuff out. So you can bite down, or you can. I had a patient. I did do something, and she says, "Wow, thank you so much. You worked on her neck," but I didn't know what else I was doing anymore. I mean, I wrote it down. I figured it out, but I worked on these muscles, and her clicking went away, and she felt like she could go eat in a restaurant again. It wasn't making all this noise when she talked, or when she was biting down. She was too embarrassed. And so all I really do with these things is I have a little tapping instrument that, has a little force, clicks down, and I click around and make sure the motion gets better. And it balances. And then I take a little finger glove or a regular glove, or sterile glove, and I open them up and I go in here and I massage in here and out here. And I have the finger in here, I tell them bite down, and it pushes my finger in and it pushes it into the muscle. And that works like a charm. And all you really need is some anatomy knowledge and some some way of learning how to squeeze the stuff together. And then I asked the ENT, how you treat it? He says, I diagnose it, I don't treat it. I'm like, oh, that helps. But, so anyway, that's the TMJ story with the pterygoid. So that's it for that. Do you guys have any questions to that? Yes, sir.
When people dislocate their jaw, how does that look like? And how do they pop it back in?
I'm not sure to what extent you dislocate, but it's this joint that's going to go forward most likely, or something. And it often is. What happens in here is you have ligaments around, and you have two discs. You have one in the front, one in the back of this arm sticking up, because this is not round. This is like flat up here. So you make it rounder. And if one of the discs gets popped and is either in the front, can you only imagine if one of the discs gets in the front, or the mouth is open, and you want to close that socket, and it yanks on that thing in the back, on that ligament, it's going to hurt. You're not going to close it. And so I went to learn a technique, and I don't do that technique. I went to learn a technique, and you sit the guy in the chair, and you got him like that, and you go like that on the thing, and you go like boom, and you distract it, and you balance out these discs, and he pops it in, and then it sets him back to front, and it sets right that and that, but it's a bit painful. I use the tapper. Or I use, my drop piece for the neck. I can use it a little bit with that as well.
So why is it easy to pop the arm out of socket and just pop it back in? You don't need surgery or anything, you just pop it out, pop it back in.
Well, because you're not breaking a bone. If you're not breaking a bone, and if you have an arm that is, and actually it's interesting, I had a patient who called me desperate, he said, my shoulder looks so weird and he can't move it to the side. I'll send me a picture. And I said, and it really was like it was popped down and forward.
So is that?
And so that's popped out. So when they go in and they have to in the emergency room, I'm not doing that. Somehow they distract it and pull it down and then push it back so it goes back into the socket. And so, if you think about it, you bring that, all these muscles back here attached to this stuff. This is actually upside down. Hold on. This is the right way. So that was really out of socket. But all these muscles here, they attach to this arm here. So everything is held in like that. And there's one muscle in the front that does the same thing. If you elongate all that and bring it forward, can you imagine how much torture these muscles are going to get? It's going to get loose and painful. And so even if you bring it back, you're going to have a much looser joint around. And so one of the things I do that technique with muscle activate, because the brain goes like, I ain't using that muscle, it hurts too much when I'm using and contracting. By doing this, for example, that's this muscle back here, some of these. But we can massage it, or we can bring laser on it, we can do some rehab to bring the juice back into this muscle and help it. It's not just you go to the gym and do it. That's where it's like, that's where you have to think a little bit further than just that. When some of the medical establishment thinks, oh no, it's, you just have to go to the gym and work it out. That's not necessarily the case. You can understand why. All right, how is that? Any other questions?